Okay, so welcome back to another skills video, and on this session we're going to look at feedback. So the topic of feedback, a skill you're going to use hopefully on every lesson that you do. So let's kind of explore what feedback is. So let's start by saying what it's not. So feedback is not about getting your pupil to drive round for an hour, 40 minutes, and at the end giving them a list of their mistakes. That's not really feedback. That might be coming from where you've thought about how the driving test is conducted, where an examiner will sit in silence apart from giving directions, and at the end give some form of feedback about the result and a short debrief about the faults and any recommendations. And it will be very short and to the point. So I think driving instructors in the past have confused that with how to deliver feedback. And you got to think about the role of an examiner is completely different to your role as a trainer. You're a trainer where someone's paying for a driving lesson, and people like to know how they're getting on quite regularly. So let's have a look at my first little bullet point here. So basically, feedback is about how you communicate with your pupils. And you do this throughout the whole lesson. So people like to know, your pupils like to know, how they're progressing towards the agreed goals. So, you know, when they start with you, they'll have a bigger goal of wanting to pass their driving test, be a safe driver, build confidence, all those kinds of things. And on each specific lesson, you'll have some kind of agreed goals, as we've covered in previous subject videos where we looked at agreeing goals. So you can check that out. So yeah, so it's how you communicate, and your pupils, they're paying for a lesson. They like to know how they're getting on with those towards their targets. So feedback is about encouraging your pupils when they do well. People like to know when they're doing a good job, because otherwise they're blind. They're like a rudderless ship thinking, well, am I doing all right? Am I doing bad? I need some feedback. I need to know what's going on. And of course, when things aren't going well, when there's mistakes, learning opportunities, the pupil needs to feel supported that they're working towards those goals, because that is what they're paying for. So yeah, so it's really important that that feedback is throughout the whole lesson, and think of other things you might do where you're on the receiving ends of feedback. Maybe you're a member of a gym and you've got targets, or you've just got an app, one of these fitness apps, and think about the ways that you're motivated to get things done. What motivates you is having a target that if you do X amount of workouts this week, you're going to get a little badge. You kind of know how you're doing. There'll be some kind of metrics to sort of say how you're doing. So it's all very specific, and you get this feeling of, I'm moving forwards, I'm achieving things. And that's what motivates you. That's what will keep your pupils coming back, because there's goals, there's targets, pupils achieve them, they know they've achieved them, and they know what areas that they need to work on, and that will motivate them as well, thinking, right, I've got to improve on this. This is the thing I need to do, and they're going to come back and get better, because that will achieve the big goal of them passing their driving test, getting their independence back, all of those kinds of things. So yeah, so that's really important. So it's not just about sitting in a car, watching a learner in silence, and then just give them a list of mistakes at the end. That's going to be very demotivating and not really how we want to be delivering feedback. So 5 essentials when giving feedback to your learner. So they want to be timely, it wants to be positive, honest, specific, and relevant. So let's just go through and give you some examples of each of those. So if we look at timely needs to be soon. We can't wait. If something's just gone wrong, we're not going to wait till the end of the lesson, sort of say, oh yeah, 40 minutes ago at that roundabout, blah de blah, because they probably would have forgotten it by then. So feedback needs to be delivered in a timely way. it can, also think about mistakes that your pupil's about to make. So for example, let's say your pupil's coming up to a roundabout, they're going to be turning left, and you've said at the roundabout turn left, and before the roundabout is a junction, a left junction, and you notice the pupil's hand go into the stalk to press it. So you can be direct, you can give timely feedback and just jump in and say, wait a minute, don't pop your signal on just now. So that is timely feedback. You've noticed what your pupil's doing and you've just jumped in there. So it's like an intervention. It is an intervention, but it's timely, and you've given your pupil feedback to avoid this mistake. Let's think of another example. So let's say you're giving immediate feedback and it's on a positive nature. So let's say, I don't know, your pupil's been struggling with judging gaps on the roundabout, and you've agreed that they're going to go back and we're going to do this roundabout again, and they're going to take on the responsibility, and you're just going to watch them and let them get on with it, and they've just done it well. So we can say, so well done, and be specific. You judged that gap beautifully there, really good job. So it's timely. So they've just gone back and done it, because they're going to want to know, did I do all right? They're going to, if your pupils are saying, how was that? Did I do okay there? That is an indication to you they want feedback. Yeah, they're craving for it. They want to know how they're doing, because remember, they're trying their very best. The mistakes, the faults, at the end of the day, your pupils not doing those on purpose, are they? They are just that, mistakes. They're learning opportunities, and they're trying their very best to do a good job, and they will crave feedback because they've just put their heart and soul in something to try and really get something done. And so to give some feedback instantly, it is really good. So next aspect of... Oh, no, actually, before I go on to the positive, let's just stick with time. You've got another example here. So let's say after a safety critical, got an example here. I don't know, let's just say you're on rural roads this time and your pupil's just gone round a bend too quickly. And you notice your pupil sort of looking a bit scared, like a bit, shocked by that. So again, we want to deliver this feedback timely. So safety critical, probably want to put up, have a chat about that, but do it timely. Don't wait till the end of the lesson. The opportunity is now, and now you've got the ability, the opportunity to adapt your lesson now and go do that again, repeat it and get it done right. And this is something that's really important when you come to your part 3, because the examiner is going to expect you to be dealing with things in a timely manner, as we will kind of talk about the exam towards the end of this section. So next thing, positive. So feedback should be positive. We don't, as I've said, we don't just want to hit our pupil with a list of all the mistakes they made, all the things they do wrong. That's going to be very demotivating. They might even think, do you know what, I can't do this, I don't know why I bother, I'm paying all this money, and I don't think I'm learning anything. So you're probably going to lose a customer. So you need to be encouraging your pupils, motivating your pupils, and deliver feedback in a positive way. You might have heard of the praise sandwich as a method of delivering feedback, where there's something good in the middle. The meat of the sandwich, if you like, is the area of development, the thing that you need to go and work on, and then finishing with a positive. Okay, that needs to be, you need to be careful when you deliver that, because it can sound insincere. You don't want to say, oh, you did check your mirrors lovely then, but the timing of your signal was rubbish. But yeah, your position was really good. Because if it's delivered like that, your pupil's just going to hear that negative. The last positive that you just delivered, they're probably not going to pay any attention to, and it sounds very insincere. So you have to be very careful about not delivering like what's commonly known as the shit sandwich. So with the shit bit in the middle. It should be positive in the middle. Another thing you might try that's very similar to the praise sandwich is too good one better. So if we take that same example, if I can remember it. So yeah, what was wrong? There's signaling, wasn't it? So yeah, last roundabout, good use of mirrors, good lane selection. That's something we've been working on. That's really good. And to make that even better, if we look at the timing of your signal, then we can, then we're going to crack this. We're going to crack these roundabouts, delivered in a positive way. So can you see the difference there? So two good, one better, or one good, one better. It's the one better thing. You've seen something, yeah, there's positive things that they're doing. Give them some praise and encouragement for the things they deserve. And then to make it even better, we could do this. So yeah, deliver feedback in a positive way. I've already said avoid saying but. I'm just looking down at my notes just to make sure I don't forget anything. We want to be eliciting positive feedback from our pupils, because feedback is a two-way street. We want to kind of get out of our pupils, which I'm going to talk about that a little bit lower down. So yeah, so we want to try and get information out of our pupils, and this will relate very closely to the other skills video that we've done on effective questions. So let's say the example of a bay park. Your pupils, we've agreed that we're going to practice bay parks, and they've just had a go. They've had an attempt. You've let them get on with it because that was agreed. You've just sat in silence. You'd only jump in if they was going to run someone over, crash the car. You're letting them get on with it, and they've just done it. And you could say to them, well, how do you think you did with that last one? How was that? So we're getting the pupil to open up what they thought. So if they say, yeah, it was good. Okay, tell me what was good about it. Get them to tell you what was positive. Well, this time I managed to finish between the lines. Good. Make it positive. Get them to think about being positive. Okay, if we move on to honest. So feedback needs to be honest. That's a real must. We don't want to lie. We don't want to say you're doing really good at this when they're clearly not, because that's going to give them a false sense of hope, a false sense of confidence. They may think, I'm really good at this now, but they're not. So it has to be honest feedback. Avoid giving praise just to make your pupils feel better. Don't get me wrong, we need our pupils to feel positive. We need to feel that they're working towards a goal, they've got hope. But don't just put it in as like, you're doing really well. You are, you're doing really well. I think if I was hearing that, I don't think you really mean it. It doesn't sound very sincere either. So make sure it's honest. Pupils will respect you for honesty. Yeah, sometimes the truth just needs to be said. We don't want to waffle on and just get to the point of what is wrong. Be honest, be direct with your feedback. Avoid using the overuse of superlatives like, oh, that's awesome. That was, an awesome use of your mirrors there. It's like, okay, right. I've been doing it before, fine. So just be aware of sort of patronising pupils with the overuse of superlatives. Make sure when you do give praise where it's due. It needs to be earned. Something we're going to talk about next. It needs to be specific. Where exactly did they earn that? And as I say, get it from the pupil. I've got an example here which I'm just going to refresh my memory. Okay, so pupils, when you might have just done a driving assessment, or they're coming up to test, or you're just doing a driving lesson, and they made a mistake, and the pupil, you're kind of getting your pupil to open up and talk to you, and they sort of say, well, I wouldn't normally have done that, I'm going to be fine next week for my test. Or people that have passed their test, well, I don't normally do that in lessons. Okay, so hang on a minute, is that, have we been honest with them? Because we hear that all the time. I hear that with PDIs quite a lot when they failed a part 3, and they say, well, normally I would have done that. I would have done that in all my lessons. I just didn't do it on the test. Well, be honest with yourself. Be honest. The examiners picked it up. There's obviously something going on there. is it really just a one-off? I mean, yes, it could be a one-off, but with feedback, take it on board and think, do you know what? That this person is telling me this for a reason. You know, listen to it. Listen to feedback. Be honest with yourself about it. And also be wary of the pupil that just sort of says, I'm rubbish at this, you know, I might as well just give up. If you're hearing that from a pupil, that's a good indication that you've set the bar too high, that you're under instructing, and your pupil is struggling and they're not happy. You might lose a customer out of this. So if your pupils are giving you feedback that they're hopeless at it, they're rubbish at this, they just can't do this, then look at your lesson planning. Are you setting the goals at the correct level? Are your routes set at the correct level? And are you given the correct level of support to help your pupil with this? Or are you just letting them flounder? Confidence going down, they're paying for it. Would you pay for another lesson where you just think you're rubbish and you can't do it? It just feels like you're throwing money down the sink at this point. So look for those signs. Okay, let's move on. So let's look at specific. So feedback should be specific, as I've already kind of said. So let's have a look at a couple of things here. Okay, so I'm just going to share with you a story about feedback and being specific and eliciting information from your pupil. So I'm just going to share with you a little example of something that happened yesterday on a driving lesson. So pupil Emily, we're at a busy roundabout. This was agreed, something she needed to practice because she struggled with getting the gaps. Okay, so we agreed that I would let her get on with it because we'd had a few practices and they were going well. So on this particular occasion, so she's getting on with it and I was only going to jump in if she needed it. So we were waiting there. There were a couple of gaps that she missed initially, okay, and then there were no gaps, cars kept coming round. And then we had 3 blockers come round and Emily was preparing to move off and there was a bit of a delay in her reaction. And by the time she got the car moving, the 3 blockers are just now leaving the roundabout and she started to go. And I've had to stop her because the gap has now disappeared. Cars from the right are now moving into the roundabout. Okay, so that was the mistake, the fault, the need. So we went round, we pulled up, and I just asked her about how she felt. So how did you feel with the last roundabout? She goes, well, yeah, I was hesitating. I missed several gaps. I could have gone. And I said, okay, so what do you think the cause of that is? Is it, how do you feel about the gaps? Do you feel that you're able to judge the gaps? She said, oh no, yeah, I know, I totally know there were gaps. I know I should have gone, I could have gone, but by the time I'd got the car on the way, I'd kind of missed my gap. So I think let's delve into that. So we want to be specific. So okay, so what do you think was causing that? Why was you having this delayed reaction to get the car moving? And she said, well, I don't really know. And I said, well, I was watching you, and it seemed to me that initially you didn't put enough gas on, so you got your bite, you didn't set any gas, and you're taking the handbrake off. And I spoke to her, I said, but what were we on a hill? Was that a factor? And she said, yeah, I was really terrified about rolling back because I'd done that on previous lessons. So she was worried about rolling back, and she said, by the time I got everything done, I just kind of missed my gap. So it's okay. So if I'm hearing this correctly, so to solve this problem, do we need to go back to that roundabout, or how about we just find a little hill somewhere and just practice getting you to be able and confident to get the car moving off quickly from an incline? And she said, you know what? That's what I'd like to do. So we went round. There was luckily a little hill. We live in Norwich, it's quite flat, but there are some hills. So we found a little incline, and we just pretended, we simulated as if we was at the roundabout, getting everything. So she was using the handbrake, she was getting the bite, setting the gas, enough gas, and And so I would say, right, there's one car, there's two cars, we need to go now. And then she would do her observations and get the car moving. And so we did a few of those and her confidence come up. So then it was like, so now should we go back to that roundabout and give it another go? And that kind of worked because she just felt a little bit more confident about the hill. So this is how, by being specific with feedback and getting information from your pupils, when you're analysing your faults, you can get to the root cause. And so that worked. I mean, she went back there confidently and I was able to leave her to it because her mind was telling her this is a gap, but her hands and her feet, coordination together, wasn't catching up with her mind. She needed to just get more confident in that. So it was a nice little adaptation and something that's what you'd be looking to do in your part 3, making sure it fits the needs of the pupil. And kind of the next point that we're looking at is relevant. You know, that was relevant to the pupil's needs at that moment of time. So it's timely, we've done it positively, we're honest about what's happened, we've been specific, and now relevant. So with the relevancy, it's about what's going on in the lesson, in the here and now. What needs to happen now when we're giving this feedback. When you give feedback at the end of the lesson, give feedback on what just happened in this lesson. Be very specific about the points that have just come up and what you've done to work on them, so it's all very relevant. Encourage your pupils to self-analyse and self-reflect when eliciting feedback from them. I think I've made that point clear before, but that's just what I hope those messages are landing. So yeah, so they're the 5 essentials of giving feedback. Other things we just need to talk about is, we already have, just to re-emphasise, we want to be giving praise and encouragement where it's due and supporting our pupils when they need it. So when they make the mistakes, you're there to support them and get them over the little hurdles and get them achieving, get them motivated. Feedback is two-way. It's client-centered learning, so it's got to be two-way. Feedback from the instructor, so you might need to tell your people what's just happening because they're not sure and they want that feedback, they're seeking that feedback. But as we've already said, we want to elicit that feedback from our pupil, encourage them to self-reflect, self-evaluate how they're doing because they know how they're feeling. Like my example with Emily on the roundabout, she felt good with the gaps. The gaps are not the problem. She knows about blockers. But just sort of digging around and digging a little bit deeper, we got to like the root cause and getting her feet to catch up with her brain. And then we went and practiced that, build a bit of confidence. So yeah, so get your pupils looking at themselves. Active and passive learners. So I just want to mention that really. So some pupils are really up for learning and really want to be involved in the learning process. Where some think, well, that's your job. You just tell me what to do. I don't like giving feedback on myself. I'm not very comfortable with it. So respect that, but tactfully encourage them to talk and find out what they're going on. But you just have to accept that some pupils are more like want to take a back seat in their learning and would rather you do all the thinking and decision making. But encourage them to do that because that's where learning is going to take place. But you just sort of need to be aware that not everyone is up for it. In terms of a part 3, I definitely want to be taking someone who's active in the in this process of providing feedback, thinking about how they're doing. So would definitely want to use one of those because then you're gonna, it's gonna flow a little bit better than someone who just sits back. So I don't know. So and finally here we just want to look at how to deliver feedback. As I've kind of already just mentioned in what I've been talking about there, sometimes it's just okay to say nothing. And your silence is an indication that everything's going well to your pupil. And say that to them. Say that if I'm quiet, that means I'm happy with what you're doing. Giving feedback might just be a smile, a nod, a thumbs up. Yeah, good. You did it. Well done. It might be a conversation. You might need to talk about something on the move. You might just sort of have a conversation. But how did you feel with that last roundabout there? Yeah, okay. So should we think about what we need to do differently there and go do that again? So you could have a conversation on the move. If it needs more of a discussion, that the pupil doesn't really understand quite what's going on and you need to have a proper chat, pull up at the roadside, and you can deliver your feedback there and go through it at the roadside, and then change your plan, adapt it, crack on, and go fix the problems. Yeah, that's kind of all I've got on my slide. What I just want to do now is relate it to the part 3. So let's just get rid of that. So let's just look at the part 3 form. So we're looking at the teaching and learning strategies, and the competency this is really all about is, was the pupil given appropriate and timely feedback during the session? So we'll delve into that in a little bit. But also think about the subject of feedback, because it comes up more than once on the on this marking sheet. So let's have a look. Was sufficient feedback given to help the pupil understand any potentially safety critical incidents? So sufficient feedback, timely feedback after a safety critical or potentially safety critical incident, you'll be given feedback there. We've already highlighted the one that we're going to talk about more in a minute. And also look at the end of the session. At the end of the session, was the pupil encouraged to reflect on their own performance? So getting them to feedback on themselves. And another one here, were the pupil's queries followed up and answered? So if a pupil's got a question, they're giving you feedback. They're not sure of something. They're telling you, I'm not sure of this. That's feedback to you, so you can then fill that gap. So let's just look at the main one. If I can find it. Yeah, the one above. Was the pupil given appropriate and timely feedback during the session? So we're just going to flip to the ADI 1 document to check that out. So here it is. And I'm just going to read through the points. So feedback is an essential part of the learning process and must be balanced. What are they talking about? Balance. Feedback should be balanced between the instructor and the pupil, client-centered. A pupil needs to have a clear picture of how they are doing, as we've said, against their learning objectives. We all want to know how we're getting on against our goals. That's what motivates us. So we want to know that throughout the lesson, not just at the end, throughout. How was that last roundabout? If we're doing roundabouts, do that. How was that last bay park? Would you let your pupil do 3 bay parks and then feedback the 3 bay parks at the end of the 3rd one? Or would you sort of say, okay, that was 1. How was that? What would we need to do? What would we need to change before we go and do the next one? Try it again. Do that. That was much better. To make it even better, what would you do? So then by the 3rd one, that is cracked. You've cracked that. Rather than giving them a list of 3 things that they do badly at the end of 3 bay parks, isn't the way we do feedback. So it is, as we've said, timely is throughout the whole lesson. They should be encouraged when performing well and coached when a problem or learning opportunity occurs. So exactly what we've said. However, a constant stream of words, however technically accurate, given at an unsuitable time, may be demotivating or actually dangerous. So if you're barraging your pupils with loads of questions or asking them things and distracting them, then that's obviously clearly going to be bad. There's an appropriate time for feedback. So that's that. Sitting quietly and saying nothing can be also a very powerful form of feedback in some situations. As I said, by me saying nothing means you're doing good. I'm happy with what you're doing. All feedback should be relevant, positive, and honest. It is not helpful if the pupil is given unrealistic feedback which creates a false sense of their own ability. Oh yeah, you're doing really well. You're going to pass your test. You're going to be great. Are they? Is that honest? So it's got to be honest. When using scaling, how do you think you did it last roundabout? Oh, probably a 9 or a 10. Really? Was it? So be careful with your scaling. 10s are like, yeah, perfect. Experienced driver, couldn't do any better. Yeah, so be very careful with that kind of scaling. Be realistic. Rather than saying somebody has a weakness, consider expressing it as a learning opportunity. So, as we said, these are positive. Don't go through a list of negative things that you know, or that you made this mistake, you made that mistake. These are all opportunities that you can go work on and improve upon. However, if they need to be told something is wrong or dangerous, there is no point waffling. Get to the point and tell them. If you pull them up after a safety critical, don't go waffling around everything they've just done well and then like 10 minutes later tell them, oh, and that big thing you just did. No. Put them up, get straight to the point. You have to tell them, do you know what you just did there, it's dangerous. You know, that's why I had to brake for you. That's why I stopped you. And then talk about it. The pupils should have a realistic sense of their own performance. Realistic sense of their own performance. Got to be honest. Feedback is a two-way street. It should ideally be prompted by the pupil. There you go. It's prompted by the pupil. Get the pupil to open up with the PDI, responding to the pupil's questions and comments. So if they're asking questions, make sure you're responding and dealing with those. Fill the gaps in their knowledge. The pupil's feedback should never be overlooked or disregarded. Okay, indications that all elements of this competency are in place could include providing feedback in response to questions from the pupil. Do I need a signal here? Don't just say, well, yeah, get it on, let's go. Hang on a minute, let's talk about that. Seeking the appropriate opportunities to provide feedback that reinforces understanding or confirms achievement of learning objectives. Providing feedback about failure to achieve learning objectives that helps the pupil achieve an understanding of what they need to do to improve. Providing feedback that the pupil can understand, talk in their language, don't use jargon, make it at their level. Providing consistent feedback that is reinforced by body language, like mirroring, like, you know, look at them, smile, give encouragement. A lack of competency could include, will basically be the opposite of those things. Providing feedback on a long time after the incident. Providing feedback a long time after the incident, so that pupil cannot link the feedback to what happened. So it's pointless saying, you know, that round about like 20 minutes ago, that thing, they've forgotten. Okay, providing feedback that overlooks a safety critical incident. So this is where it needs to be timely. Continuously providing feedback when this may be distracting to the pupil. Try not to over-instruct, try not to distract your pupil. Sometimes silence is a good thing. Failing to check the pupil's understanding of feedback. So let them talk, listen, let them tell you, and if you've had to explain things, just get them to confirm back. So in this situation, what would you do and why? Do you understand? Tell me why. Get them to tell you. Providing feedback that is irrelevant to the pupil's learning objectives. For example, commenting on their personal appearance. Don't want to be doing that. Refusing to hear reasonable feedback about the PDI's own performance. Okay. So that's covered that one. So we've looked at the subject of feedback. There will be a little worksheet, some questions for you to answer, and I look forward to seeing you in the next skills video. I'll see you then.